conscious manifestation. You know, as human beings, we're manifesting all the time, so we don't need to learn how to manifest. But I think if we look at our lives, then we can see what we're manifesting. So parts of it we might be very happy with, parts of it we might not be so happy with. So how can we kind of take a bit more control of that process and create lives that are truly aligned for us? Another question is, do we actually need to do this kind of conscious manifestation work? Can we just completely surrender to the flow of life and just let it be exactly as it is? You know, we've all got different views on this. So yeah, what's that process of conscious manifestation like for you? I'd love to know your thoughts on that. And as I always say, myself and Luke can only share our own experiences, what's worked for us. So we all have our own unique paths. So it's important to have different reflections on these subjects. But let's kick off then. When we talk about conscious manifestation, we've already started talking about it there. We're all manifesting all the time. We all have thoughts. We all have energy. We all have feelings. So we're consciously manifesting. The question is, what are we manifesting? And are we happy with what we're manifesting? And I just looked in the group and I asked the question in March, it was about what would you most like to manifest into your life by the end of the year? And we're halfway through the year now, beyond halfway through the year. And so we can kind of check in with perhaps our intentions for the year and how we're getting along with with those. You know, are we aligned with them? Have we fallen out of alignment? I talk about my journey this year, which most people know about, so I talk about it every week. But perhaps Luke can share his thoughts on how his year has gone so far. But just some thoughts from some people around that time in March, the kind of things that people are looking to change in their lives. Someone said peaceful and calm home environment. Someone else said to have no more financial worries, could live in my home comfortably, inner peace, good mental health, to give up smoking. That's obviously a big one for people. New home, my partner, my soulmate. Like to find the path towards my purpose, Rachel said. Debbie said my purpose in last stage of my life. Continuous healing, Jane said. Namala said peace, calm, acceptance. Michael said peace in my head, love in my bed, wallet of bread, wallet full of bread. So you can kind of get a general feeling. I mean, there's kind of, what is it, 4 aspects to our lives. You could say our health, our relationships, our relationships, our work, and our finances, maybe. Maybe you could kind of distinguish the 4 aspects. And so we can continue to work on these 4 aspects, even if there's an aspect of life that is going well. You know, there's always more improvement, there's always more development, always more learning and evolution. But, you know, perhaps you can check in with yourself now. How have you got on this year with your own intentions for manifestation? And yeah, how was I bet you, Luke, in your year? Can you think in mind now, what was your intentions for this year? Did you have any? Did you feel the need for any? And how has your year gone to date in that sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, the big one we were just discussing before we hopped on here was, you know, at the end of last year, I was discussing, relationships and my girlfriend with my friends. And, you know, it kind of came out of this really interesting discussion with some of my old friends that, you know, actually, I really want to propose. I really want to get married. Something which I've been very much like not interested in, wasn't on my radar. You know, didn't seem that important to me. We've only been together a few years, but something just shifted. You know, something in my world shifted, and that gave me this sort of desire, and this good opportunity presented itself. Right, it was the alignment of right place, right time. You know, divine timing kind of just reared its head. That I had this conversation with my friends just before we were going away on this big holiday to Sri Lanka, which just seemed like this really good place, beautiful place to sort of make this commitment. So proposed, and the original idea was, you know, not to get married this year, just to leave it. But, you know, again, things just my fiance Michelle, she's got Chinese heritage, and in Chinese culture there is this idea of having an auspicious date, like, you know, certain dates are lucky, certain dates are unlucky. And so when we were discussing when the wedding could be, we cross-referenced all the dates that we couldn't do because it was too soon, or, you know, there was other things in the way, and cross-referenced them with the dates that were auspicious. And one date was left in the rest of the year, you know, before it get, you know, we wanted it to be sort of when it was still fairly warm in summertime. And we rang up the venue that we were thinking about, and it turned out that they had availability on that one day. So then it was just like, well,
perfect.
You know, and I think going back to what you were saying earlier, I think for me, that really kind of sums up the journey that I've been on in this year. And it's appeared in lots of other areas of my life as well. But I think that's a really good example of how manifestation is not this active trying to get something process, but it's actually a letting go of attachment to outcome and being guided by, like a river running downhill, right? The water flows in the direction it's being pulled by gravity. It's being pulled by this sort of innate desire to move somewhere. But the path that it takes is not dictated by gravity, it's dictated by its environment and what's around it. So you can set your intention, that's your guiding star, but the route that you take to get there, you have to surrender and you have to be open to ideas that you don't currently have and opportunities that you don't currently have, rather than trying to find a new way to apply effort to solve problems and to get a solution.
Yeah, I love that. There's a few things that came up for me there. It's that's why I like the word intention, because it's not like a resolution. You're holding it gently is the kind of feel I get when you say that, and that's very much the way I look at it. Now, I do you could say more traditional manifestation, conscious manifestation work, and I used the title of this live I called "The Real Secret to Conscious Manifestation," because most people would have seen that film, The Secret. And I remember watching that, and it makes it seem very, very easy in terms of manifestation. Oh, you just kind of put your order into the universe and visualize it, and eventually it'll happen. But I think there's stats out there, something like in the high 90% failure, people that have attempted, to do this kind of work using that method. I think what you said there is that for some reason manifestations come up quite a lot on calls I've had recently. Where's the kind of manifestation work coming from? Well, I think for a lot of people you're coming from a part basically that's not connected to your true and authentic self or the present moment, and you're doing it from this kind of feeling of lack or general feeling of being unfulfilled or unhappy or desperate or scarcity. People that are trying to manifest money, and it's like that they're doing it from a place of just feeling terrified or massive amount of scarcity and fear in the system. It doesn't matter how much you say to yourself, I am abundant, or I deserve money, or I am worthy of whatever, $1 million or whatever you're trying to manifest in your life. If you're doing it from this place of a low vibration, a sense of lack, then you're just going to manifest more of that into your life. And so that's the real key, I think, with this work. Yes, we can do mantras, and I kind of have some mantras that I say in the morning. I also have a short script where I've written out what my ideal day is. I'm working, and I've been working on that for a number of years, been repeating that, and it's slowly coming into reality. Still parts of it I'm working on. But for me, it's very important. Like, where are you energetically when you're doing that kind of work? Are you coming from a place of lack and desperation and unhappiness when you're repeating these mantras or repeating this script you've got, whatever it might be? It's going to have very, very little effect on your life if you're doing that kind of work from that place. Whereas if you can get yourself into a place of balance and well-being and just general kind of connection to source or your higher self, whatever you might say, I often do it at the end of my meditation. Then when you do it, I find it has much more effect, because ultimately when I talk about the real secret is your energetic output is a direct reflection of the life you see around you. You literally are generating your life, external life experience from your external vibration. So the way to shift your reality and manifest the high vibration reality that you'd really like is to work on the inside. It's that's ultimately what it comes down to. And the way you do that is to raise your vibration. And ultimately, I believe the only way you can do that is to heal yourself, basically to start clearing out some of these traumas and blockages that are kind of lowering the vibration in your energetic system. But as you said, what I loved about what you said there is whatever your intention is for your life, it is very much about, not holding it too tightly, not attaching to it too much around an idea of it must happen by this time, or because what the mind does is it goes, well, why hasn't it happened yet? It's something going wrong, or, it kind of creates suffering from it if we're holding it too tightly. Whereas if you just go, this is my intention, and just let it go, and just go with the stream, the flow of the stream. And however it happens, and whenever it happens, you leave that open for the universe to decide, for this greater intelligence to decide. One of the things I was going to quickly mention is that I know I talked about last week, but I had this intention at the start of the year, create more financial abundance in my life, expand my coaching business. And halfway through the year, I found that it all kind of collapsed on me, basically, after coming back from Costa Rica and ayahuasca retreat. But on the other side of that now, I can kind of see, I basically took like 2.5, 3 months out, just kind of sat meditating while I was on gardening leave. Got made effectively almost redundant from my job. But then, everything's kind of worked out the last couple of weeks, and I can feel now the energy around the business shifting. Still early days, but I found myself generally in a much better energetic place. But I had an idea of how my intention would work out. Oh, the money flows in, the clients flow in, etc. What actually happened was my old role in my work had to completely collapse. I had to basically just sit in meditation for 2 months, and then those things that I intended started to happen. So you've really got to hold it loosely and just allow this greater intelligence to guide you, really, because that is what knows best. And you might have an idea for what you want your life to look like, but that great intelligence might have a totally different idea and could produce or bring through something much, much better for you, much more aligned for you, if you allow it to, if you're not too stuck and rigid on this ego's idea of what you want.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, that's a really great contrasting example to what I just gave, because, when you heard my story, you can easily then get the wrong idea that like, oh yeah, if you just somehow figure out how to become more energetically focused and manifest, then everything will just align and work perfectly and you won't have to do anything. Yeah. That's not at all the point. So as you just pointed out, like there's the opposite side of that, which is that actually things have to get worse before they can get better. And there's the created idea of like linear growth that we all cling on to. Like the linear growth is, I'm here, I want to get there, I'm going to go straight towards it, and that's the fastest way. If I want a better relationship or better health or better finances, that I have to go directly towards it, and I have to take sort of huge action right here, right now. And if I just apply lots of effort, then I will succeed. And if I don't succeed, it's because I didn't apply enough effort. But actually,
that's the old model, isn't it? That's the old model, which is like this. You've got to make it happen. You've got to continually do. You don't sleep. Just keep driving. And often what happens, you may be able to manifest your goals, but you probably completely burn yourself out along the way at some point. So it doesn't actually get you to where you want to go, which is ultimately happiness, which is what we're all kind of seeking more of.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, going back to what you said earlier about, holding the intention, it's like the focus in that model is on the goal. And all the time you're in a position, you're coming from a place of, I don't have this thing and I need to get it. And so you're in a place of lack, you're in a place of scarcity, you're pushing towards it, but you're coming from the person who doesn't have it. And so instead, the opposite of that we're suggesting here is that you can hold that in mind. Like, I know that's where I want to go towards. That's like my sort of guiding objective. But really the way that you differentiate and decide what path is best to take is by turning inwards. The focus on the attention is not on when am I going to, and I think having smart goals and all that kind of stuff, like time focused and realistic and achievable, I think that's all fine to have that as a model. But then it's like, once you've set that, what do you do next? And for most people, it's like you go into a spin trying to set that into action and trying to force it to happen because you're attached to the outcome. I must have that now, otherwise I'll be a failure. And that is where the chaos begins, right? When you go, I've set this smart objective, it's time focused, it's achievable, I've got steps that I can take towards to get it, the traditional mindset model. But now I have to achieve it. And if I don't achieve it, I've been a failure. And if you let go of that and instead you turn your attention inwards as things are happening around you, it's like you have this way of being able to sort of figure out what is calling you by feeling into your experience. And that does not necessarily mean that it's always going to be a positive feeling, but it means that you're your system is giving you clues as to what is really driving you. Like your unconscious mind is driving you through all these ways, and the strong emotions that are arising, be that positive or negative, are the guide to take you towards whatever it is that you truly desire. And that for me is manifestation.
Yes. Yeah, that's it. I mean, I think we all know, anyone who's watching this, you know, you've got a certain amount of realization, I would imagine, like we have, that, you know, purely looking to acquire more things in life is not going to equal happiness. I was actually listening to a podcast before this from a guy called Rich Roll, who's a very famous podcaster now, and he was saying that he achieved all the Western ideals for success, you know, in terms of his business, in terms of money, in terms of relationships, in terms of all the things we were talking about here, purpose for his podcast, but not some of the other things, the inner aspects, you could say, like inner peace, you know, mental balance and well-being, you know, that wasn't there. So there's this kind of Western ideal, isn't there, of, oh well, if you create this external life for yourself that's abundant, then you'll feel that inside, you know. But I think we all know that. But I also want to say there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with wanting to experience more love in your relationships, more fulfillment in your work, more money in your bank account, or, you know, a promotion that you're looking for, whatever it might be. I think that's wonderful. But I think there has to be a realization that true happiness comes from healing yourself or reconnecting with who you really truly are. Like without that, you can spend your whole life trying to gain external achievements, notoriety, fame, money, whatever it might be, but you'll never be satisfied. So I think there has to be a kind of balance between the two. Yes, wonderful to want to achieve success externally, but it has to be balanced with the inner work. So like you were saying, it's a balance between being and doing is how I describe it. Like, yeah, there is obviously a certain amount of doing that you're going to have to do, what I would call aligned action, you know, as we talk about. So that means you're kind of working, you know, the way I describe it is like that doing work is great. You want to be doing it when you're feeling aligned, like when you're feeling passionate, when you're feeling a joy in what you're doing, rather than the doing when you're feeling under-resourced and overwhelmed, which is just going to create the same results all the time, basically. So when you are feeling that, like, under-resourced, overwhelmed, for me, that's the time to go inside and just take time out and just feel into what's happening. But what I wanted to ask you, Luke, was you're in a job now, and it's a very busy role. I know that the tendency for the mind is like, well, it will give you 1,000 reasons not to do that, not to sit for 10 minutes and just feel into your present moment experience. You know, it would just be like, we haven't got time for that. We've got this deadline. It needs to be done by 5 o'clock. And so we're going to ignore that. Interesting thing over the last couple of months is I've been forced to do that, literally just sit with whatever's coming up, pain, sadness, depression, anger, or joy, abundance, or whatever is there, just sit with it, which has been a beautiful experience. But, you know, how do you kind of do this kind of work then in combination with a really busy job that you're doing at the moment? Do you find there's a struggle there?
I think, yeah, there's definitely challenges. You know, certainly, and we discussed before, like last year when I started in that job, it was a struggle and there was conflict. And, you know, I was very attached to my mental model of how it should play out, the value that I should be able to bring, the timeline that it should happen in, even, you know, sort of politics of who can tell me what to do stuff, and, you know, what people should be doing for me. And, you know, there was a couple of moments I had where I almost had this like breakdown where I just was so utterly exhausted from trying to hold together, you know, and project this version of the world onto my surroundings. It was exhausting. It was just unsustainable. And I think that's one of the other big things that has shifted for me this year is that, you know, through surrender and also through other areas of my life that maybe needed improvement, like coming along, as I said, you know, the relationships of that, you know, the rising tide lifts all the boats. And so this year I've been coming at it from a completely different perspective. Also read a couple of exceptional books that I have probably been the most life-changing things I've ever read. But I appreciate that it's not necessarily the work, but whether you're ready to receive the work, those are the important things. So, but it's a series of books by a guy called David R. Hawkins, who's like one of the leading sort of spiritual psychologists. The late David R. Hawkins, he's no longer with us, but yeah, Power versus Force is the first one, and I've read 4 of them. But I go off topic. That really, for me, just opened a new dimension in my spiritual work. That, you know, it's not just about the practice, and it's about integrating with the rest of your life and really surrendering to everything that's happening in your experience. Not surrender in terms of, okay, I'm going to sit here and do nothing.
Yes.
But surrendering in terms of being open to see what happens if you just go with the flow, open to see what happens if you just stop resisting, stop fighting with your colleagues, stop trying to be the smartest person in the room, stop trying to push for that pay rise and going, if I don't get this pay rise, I'm going to throw my toys out the pram and leave, because, you know, I'm here now, something guided me to this point. And actually that letting go of all of that has suddenly meant that I've just hit this new level of productivity that I don't think I've ever had before in my life. I'm able to solve challenges that would have just been incomprehensible a few years ago. Even recently, I'm able to come to the table with people who are far more experienced than me, you know, decades more experienced than me, and make meaningful suggestions, because I'm not trying to have my opinion heard anymore. I'm just pointing out the things that are coming to me. And that's basically being silent while a bunch of other people argue in a room for an hour, and then making a couple of comments at the end, and then going, oh yeah, because the less you say, the more weight people actually put on what you have to say, because they're not trying to compete with you to sort of demonstrate that they're the smarter person. And there's so many levels you can go into on. But you know,
that's the whole world of politics, isn't it? In a nutshell, is like basically trying to force your opinion onto somebody else and like point out their deficiencies, which is why it's so outdated and just broken, in my opinion. I mean, imagine if you had somebody who's really done this kind of level of work on themselves in that environment. I'm not even sure whether it would work or people would vote for that person, but I'd love to see that environment start shifting, where it's just like, at the moment, it's like a battle of wills, a battle of egos, just kind of forcing their worldview on each other and just kind of picking holes in each other. And it seems very outdated. But yeah, I agree. I mean, if it's, you can find that stillness within yourself and come from that place, just one word can make a huge amount more difference than if you would just talk nonstop for half an hour from a part or a misalignment. Yeah, fully agree.
And as you'll know, like, you know, in coaching, but, you know, this applies to any relationship in business or work, you know, the real transformation comes from asking questions, not giving answers. Like, sometimes you do need to guide people along. But if you can ask a question that makes somebody else have a realization, then that is their own, they own that idea now. And so because it's come from them, you know, they embrace it 10 times more than if you suggest it and they have to accept it. So asking the question that makes other people go, oh yeah, is far more powerful than saying, well, here's the problem and this is what I think we should do. But it's a hard balance, right? Because you want to tell people what you think you should do, particularly when you think you're right, that you think they're wrong. That's
yes,
really for me, at least, anyway.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's I've talked about the kind of traditional coaching model quite a lot, and I've had kind of traditional coaches in the past where it's like, I think I talked about this last week, but you know, you come into that situation, it's like, I've got this issue in my life, and they will kind of try and, in a way, kind of talk you out of that situation, make you see it in a different light, or see the positive side, or whatever it might be, guiding you in a certain direction, which is great, which is more the mindset world, but doesn't actually shift the way you're feeling. So often I would go into a coaching session, I'd be like, wow, I feel really low about this part of my life. And they would talk, you know, trying to make me sort of reframe or see the situation differently. And I come out of the coaching session feeling no different. You know? So that's why I kind of like really embrace this more intuitive aspect of coaching that we do, which is more along the lines of, okay, that's the way you're feeling, and we're going to permission that completely, and we're going to go in and we're going to feel it together. We're not going to try and talk our way out of it in any way, which is kind of what you get with talk therapy or psychotherapy. We're just going to sit in this really painful or uncomfortable emotion, and I'm going to just be with you while you do that, which I often think is the best thing you can do for another human being, really. And as much about getting out of the way from a mind perspective as possible and allowing something else to come through you and do the work, really. But that's quite a big shift. Like, I might be going off topic of it here, but that's a difficult thing for the mind or the ego to get on board with. It's like, well,
yeah,
I haven't given this person much value here. I've just literally sat in silence with them. And it's not like the mind wants to kind of give them some amazing insight or amazing piece of wisdom. In actual fact, that doesn't help that much when a person's in some really difficult place in their life.
Yeah.
But that's what I find really helps.
The trouble with that model is that you feel really good as the person giving that piece of advice.
Yeah.
You drop the knowledge bomb.
Like, it doesn't.
Aha moment. And so you get this rush of endorphins and are in this prime state. Meanwhile, the person there is just like, I'm rubbish. This isn't working. Yeah. You know, they've just told me this thing and I'm not sure if I can do it, or I don't understand.
I don't believe it. Yeah,
exactly. So, you know, the individual experience is so extreme. You know, you can have two people sat there having a conversation and one person thinks, wow, this is the most interesting conversation I ever had in my life. And the other person thinks, please get this person away from me, because one person's doing all the talking and they think it's a great conversation. The other person's doing all the listening. They think it's terrible.
Can't wait for it to finish.
Yeah.
Yeah. So true. I've had this with my own clients numerous times. It's like, you know, I could feel like we're talking through something that's going on and nothing's shifting. Like, energetically, there's nothing shifting, and then we drop in, and I say nothing for 20 minutes. Drop in, I mean, to kind of feel through what's happening with the body in the present moment. And by the end of that 20 minutes, they're a completely different person. So I twigged that some time ago. Okay, the best thing I can do for another person really is to just sit with them and allow something else to come through and do the work for me. But just wanted to get back on. I love the way we go on different tangents with these conversations. But something I want to talk about is, you know, if we can have these intentions, holding them loosely, and I say being open to that higher intelligence that comes through on these. We were talking about when we're sitting with someone, healing them, to allow that to do the work, really, and for it to guide us in different ways. Because, you know, one thing that I find then is one thing having an intention and perhaps sticking to the daily work of visualizing or meditating or saying mantras, or hopefully all those things. I think you need to kind of combine everything together into when it comes to co-creation, because life is always going to test you. You know, I heard this phrase from one of the shamans on the retreat I was at, where he says life is just basically falling out of alignment and then bringing yourself back in alignment, falling out of alignment, bringing yourself back into alignment. It's just about how quick you can come back into alignment, really, because it will constantly knock you off balance. And so one thing I've found essential when it comes to this journey of creating a really aligned life is to have support along the way. So when you do fall and you do get caught out by the ego or by the mind that's, you know, we talked about earlier, the mind might be telling you, you know, forget all that inner work, you know, because even though we say all this stuff and we know it's true, there are times when we do fall out of alignment, where the mind can gain control, wrestle control again and say, yeah, well, maybe forget about the meditation work. We're too busy for that. We've got our goals and we need to push through and make them happen. So I find it really beneficial to sit with others and get reflection from others, so that I can. We all have blind spots, so I can know when I'm misaligned in some way. In that same, you know, there'll be times when we all feel overwhelmed or under-resourced as we go through our days. Even if we have a good day, I find I can be overwhelmed by the end of the day, particularly when I've got a 6-year-old. But so I find it really important at the end of the day to just do that energetic hygiene work, which is basically sit in a group of other people to feel through my system into all the discomfort in there, and to allow that energy to flow out of the system and clear out, you know, because if you're not doing that kind of what I call energetic hygiene work, same as with your hygiene with your teeth. If you stop doing that, eventually you're going to have problems, you know, gum disease or whatever it might be. The same as if you're not doing regular healing work with yourself, alignment work with others, this energy, this stress will just build up and up and up. and it will just take you off in a completely different direction to where your intentions lie. So it's really a case of, yes, you have that intention for your life, and you know that life is going to test you. It's going to push you out of alignment at different points, and then it's about knowing that you have support there to get you back in alignment. Because I find, a lot of people I check in with, they have all these great intentions at the start of the year. By the middle of the year, it's like, well, it'd be interesting to know actually how many people have actually managed to make changes in their life, or how many people are actually living the same reality as they start at the time of the year. But I think key really is to have support on that journey. But where do you stand on that, Luke? Have you found that to be the case, or have you found that kind of, you're able to do that working alone, or what would you say on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think as humans, we're constantly templating off people around us. That's like why, as you take a child and put them in one family versus a different family, they're going to grow up differently, and based on the country, the environment, that we template energetically. I think focus on the outcome, like you learn one language versus another language, but these things ultimately they're all patterns. They're learned patterns, and patterns are really they're not necessarily taught by like going, here's the classroom and this is the set of objectives. They're literally just absorbed from people around you. So if you are currently in a situation where you're surrounded by people who are not energetically aligned, or not aligned with the objectives that you have, because there's no ultimate alignment per se, not aligned with the objectives that you have, then you're not going to be able to just absorb that. And if anything worse, you're going to be pulled off in all these different directions, because you're going to be trying to pattern off how they act. You're going to become more like them. Being able to have a group of people that do actually, you'll learn from people who've got what you've got already, or have a template for it at least. It's going to look very different for everyone. But that particularly at the beginning as well. Like once you become more advanced, you'll be able to navigate through life without being, so
pushed around.
You won't be so. You won't just absorb stuff from other people that you don't want. You'll be able to say, "This is me, and this is what I want," and actually that doesn't align with me, and just let it go, and just let it go, and just keep letting go of stuff as it comes up. But at the beginning, you need support. You need to be able to see the work happening in other people. You need to be able to share that connection, and
I agree. Like you said, we all have different. Growing up, none of us had like a true. I don't know if there is such a thing, but like a fully aligned caregivers, did we? They all gave us a certain template, and then we go into society. No one I knew of was doing this kind of work, so we're all templating each other's misaligned systems, from teachers, caregivers, friends, family, whatever it might be. So it's really important to find people who've done a lot of this work and have found that alignment within themselves. But Luke, I'll let you go, mate. I know you got a busy day ahead. I'll finish up here, but thanks so much for joining again, mate, and hopefully
great to be on.
We'll have you on again soon.
Speak to you soon. Thanks.
Good, buddy. Bye.
Bye.